Salam and welcome back to Somali Dispatch, somalidispatch.com. My name is Abdikadir Goulet. Frances Haugen is a former project manager at Facebook who turned whistleblower, and she recently gave testimony in front of the US Senate, revealing what she called Facebook's dangerous business practices. The takeaways included allowing dangerous posts going viral and used Ethiopia's civil war as an example. To discuss these and other issues relating to Frances's testimony, we've reached out to Mohammed Warsame. He is an economist and a data science lecturer at PPP University School of Technology. He writes extensively about data-related topics, particularly in the context of developing countries and at the Horn of Africa. He joins us from London. So Mohammed Warsame, welcome back to Somali Dispatch. I really appreciate you joining us and unpacking some of the testimony whistleblower Frances Haugen has given to the U.S. Senate, and going and diving into the documents that she actually walked away from her job at Facebook and talking about how virology is actually a dangerous practice. If you can sum up for our audiences what her testimony revealed to the U.S. Senate would be great.
Yeah, certainly. So Frances Haugen, a very experienced social media specialist. So she worked at several social media companies, one of them being Pinterest, for example. So very well familiar with social networks and how they operate, how they work. So what basically happened, if I summarize, is that she had noticed at some point throughout her tenure at Facebook that Facebook was not being ethical and responsible. So Facebook had obviously had a lot of pressure against them over the years of the law. Ever since being established, there was always some sort of controversy around Facebook's business, the way they conduct the algorithms that basically supply the news feeds and that kind of organize what sort of content everybody who uses the platform sees. And the reason why her findings are so important is because 60% of the global internet users use Facebook. So it has over 2 billion users. And as such, it has such an important role in making sure that how people use these social networks is responsible and is ethical. So what she revealed was, after kind of stealing or after collating all the internal documents, so she went through internal research documents and gathered evidence because she knew she will receive a lot of doubt from individuals, and Facebook is already preparing or launching a response against her they will try to kind of portray her as someone who is not an expert on how these social networks work. So what she noticed was twofold. So the very first thing that she noticed was that Facebook actually the algorithms work in such a way, and these algorithmic changes happened in 2018, in that it kind of amplifies and distributes hateful content and controversial content and fake news. So everything with negative connotations, everything that is kind of really, really controversial is blown out of proportion. So is given airtime, and the algorithms work in such a way that there's a feedback cycle of negativity. So whatever we see on Facebook is usually, out of thousands of possible posts, what we see is mostly the really controversial stuff, the stuff that inspires anger, the things that kind of provide misinformation. So she found that Facebook is actively ignoring some of the criticism that was thrown at them, and they're conducting their business in a way such as to maximize profit, because obviously the algorithms are there to kind of ensure that advertisers and people who spend money to advertise on Facebook get the biggest bang for their buck, so to say. But what Facebook benefits from the most is the more time people spend on the platform. And they have noticed over the years, so Facebook internal research kind of revealed that, so the more hateful content, the more controversial content is displayed on people's timeline, the more people engage, the more time people spend on Facebook. And once they realized this, they have changed their algorithm in 2018 to actually make use of that. So they started to prefer content that has negative connotations, content that is more kind of divisive, that contains, elements of misinformation. So it is actually a really, really extraordinary or outrageous, finding that she made. And she has a lot of evidence. So she knew she would be attacked. And that's why she collated, tens of thousands of documents, internal documents. And before she quit her job, and then she kind of forwarded them to this organization called SEC, which is like an umbrella organization for whistleblowers, for individuals that work at big corporations that reveal things that are of interest to the public, that is really kind of illegal. So it's sort of a go-to place for people who want to reveal bad practices in industry. And so before she went to this organization to become a whistleblower, she collated tens of thousands of documents. And the worst thing was Facebook prioritizes profits, having people stay longer on the platform, and advertising revenue over the safety and mental health of its users. So it's actively using harmful and hateful content to kind of hook people to stay on Facebook, which is quite, it is against the law in many ways. And that's why there's this whole kind of witch hunt against Facebook. So she was testifying in Congress, and there's this debate of reform, and that's really what's going on at the moment.
Right. We'll go back to the role of an NCC and how this practice of Facebook affects Somalis. But as we all know, Facebook also owns other platforms, including WhatsApp and IG or Instagram. In Instagram specifically, she had just as bad things to say, since its users are largely composed of younger people. What did she reveal about Instagram's use and how it interacts with kids, and how it encourages, and how virology over there works?
So what she revealed was, because of this whole, obviously Instagram, as you've rightly pointed out, is geared towards younger audiences, and mostly has this phenomenon of, a lot of the kind of modeling, a lot of art, a lot of social facing phenomena as part of social life take place on Instagram. And what she has found out through internal research, and Facebook was aware of this, and they were actually planning to launch a kids-friendly version of Instagram. So they've realized that Instagram created a feedback cycle of depression among younger audiences. So very young people, the algorithm was actually showing, these influencers and all these people who are kind of very much artificial, and who use filters and who use all sorts of embellishments that don't really show who they are, and young people not understanding these things, not knowing that there are filters involved. There are like thousands of hours of camera editing involved that make people, or that represent or portray, especially young women, that portray an unrealistic image of women. So young people see all of these influencers, all of these kind of caked up, unrealistic and edited versions of real human beings, not showing who they really are. And that has had a really negative effect on young people who don't really understand what's happening behind the scenes. So they kind of noticed through research that many young people, and I think the Congress hearing will reveal what percentage, geographic location, but a vast majority of young people suffer from depression as a direct result of being fed with these toxic algorithms that display these unrealistic images of young people and their bodies. So imagine you're 12, you're 13, and you see these images of these influencers who have been edited, and you don't really understand the work that goes behind it. You don't really comprehend the kind of deception that lies behind this. Then you're more likely to kind of despise yourself, because you can't really match up to these unrealistic, to these fake images. So it's on Facebook, it's fake news, and on Instagram, it's fake images that is fed to young people.
Right. So when young girls can replicate those fake images, they catch a barrage of negative comments, which leads to the detriment of their lives up to the point of killing themselves. And that obviously has been a huge problem in the West, at least. Hagen's testimony, Mohammed, revealed the role that social media plays in conflict escalation. As descendants of East African, or people that come from and were born in East Africa and now are living in the West, there is a ramification for that. The escalation of the turmoil in our home countries are just, it's been contributed to Facebook and its platforms. What did Hagen reveal in terms of that aspect of its platform usage?
I think obviously I'm by no means. I mean, obviously we will have parents who will watch your program and who will be concerned about their children, especially teenagers, as well as people who are exposed to fake news on Facebook. But I think this revelation on the political dimension is the most extraordinary, that Facebook is aware of, and they're not doing enough about it. So it's twofold. So Facebook is aware about, organizing genocides, organizing political protests, and organizing movements. For example, the Myanmar genocide against the Rohingya Muslims was actually conducted on Facebook, and it was. Of course, I heard about this, but she revealed in documents that Facebook was aware of this, that Facebook was complicit in a way because they knew about it, but they haven't done anything about it, and they haven't revealed to the public that they know what is going on. So internal documents have revealed that Facebook was used by the Myanmar military regime to conduct a genocide. And that's one huge event for which Facebook is partly responsible. The second event is the insurrection in the United States, so the Capitol situation when Donald Trump lost the election. So Facebook had this component which Hagen called civic integrity, which is a part of the algorithm of Facebook that censors and that screens content for any toxic elements, for fake news. And what is astonishing is Facebook turned this on because having this feature in the algorithms actually reduces the revenues of Facebook. So for the election, but of course, since they get a lot of trouble if they don't kind of prevent, because you remember what happened in the election, in the previous presidential election when Donald Trump became president, there was this huge backlash against Facebook. There was the Cambridge Analytica scandal. The political dimension was revealed. So Facebook had to pay billions of dollars in kind of compensation. They faced various lawsuits and so on and so forth. So they learned the lesson, and what they did is they created the civic integrity component to censor political content on Facebook. But as soon as the election was over, this is the crazy thing, she has evidence that suggests that Facebook turned this component off after the election. So after the election, they turned it off. And this civic integrity is basically the ethical element of Facebook's algorithms. They turned it off so that revenues can go up again. And I think this is the most outrageous, the most, literally baffling incrimination against Facebook, that they are aware of genocides, they are aware of usages of political damages. Like in Ethiopia, for example, the regime was using social media to basically misinform the public and to hide what was going on, this whole Tigray situation, for example. So Facebook regularly, deletes tens of thousands of accounts that are created by regimes in the world, throughout the world. So Facebook is a tool for genocide. It is a tool for campaigns of violence, of hatred, and they are aware of it. And the internal documents and evidence that suggests they're not doing enough about it. I think this is the one that if all the other bads kind of don't cause reaction by lawmakers around the world, this is the one that will be the game changer for Facebook. And my prediction is Facebook will not recover from this. So Facebook will, after this whistleblowers revelations and after the evidence, Facebook will be severely impacted. If not by legislation, loads of brilliant minds that work at Facebook will have to reconsider if they have some sort of ethical compass or some sort of integrity. They will have to reconsider working for such a company that is aware of all of these crimes of against humanity, yet continues to disregard them so that revenues continue to trickle in. So right. I think that was, and for us, apologies if I kind of overstretched there. And because he touched upon the impact on Somalis as a community of diaspora as well as those at home, I think it is very important for Somalis to be aware of these things, to, you know, especially those who don't read the news, to really kind of fathom and follow up on these things, because Facebook is a platform which is tainted. It is tainted in so many ways, so as to make it already, you know, not a reliable source. So anything you see on Facebook, the likelihood of it being fake news is just too high for any reasonable person to consider. But of course, you have uneducated ones, you have young people who are not really aware of these debates about these events and these whistleblowers and so on and so forth, so who are not really in tune with the latest developments. For them, my message really is, you know, you should be aware of what Facebook does. So Facebook is a place where hateful, polarizing content, you know, the person that is, I don't know, in Somali, the person that is kind of talking about tribes and saying that, you know, this tribe is inferior and should kind of wipe out this tribe, and these kind of posts are elevated. So algorithms where, you know, content of anger, so the angry, for example, that was one really interesting point that Ms. Hogan has mentioned, was the more angry kind of emojis are placed on a post, the more likely it goes viral. And, you know, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Right. You've summed it up pretty good, and walked right into my next question. You know, we should also highlight that it's worth noting that Facebook dismissed Frances Haugen's testimony and her allegations and said, you know, she hasn't been with us for a long time. She only worked here for 2 years, but she was a project manager and she knew, you know, enough for the eyes of the world to see. Everybody, like you said, kind of suspected always that something was amiss, and she kind of revealed some of the internal reports and you know, tests that they did and what they found out. How does Somali professionals, whether they're at home or out in the diaspora, use these platforms to promote themselves professionally? And it's becoming, you know, it's taking a good portion of their day. And, you know, the more you do on social media, the more employers are now using it to dig into people's lives and find out who they essentially are. What should they be aware of in terms of saying, hey, you know, I would like to turn these platforms off, but I'm a professional and I need to use this. What are the cautionary advices that you would give them?
I think, so there are various service-oriented platforms like Fiverr, for example, where you can hire social media specialists to kind of screen your social media, to create a little screening report, and they cost a trivial amount. I mean, they take, I don't know, $5 or $10, and they screen your social media for a very small fee, and they can provide a report of some sorts. And I think it is quite important to be aware that these platforms are screened by employers. These platforms are used as a means to discriminate, because if a line manager or potential manager goes on your Facebook and they're leaning towards a certain political orientation and certain beliefs, and they see your posts are in direct contradiction to that, be it just, you know, the opposition towards one politician, that could be sufficient, and you wouldn't know it. So you wouldn't know. And that's why my message really is to make sure that you're aware that you're being stalked. You're aware that this platform is harmful in the sense of it wasting your time, in the sense of it kind of, you know, detracting from you as opposed to adding to you, because the algorithms are skewed to produce and to amplify and to distribute content that is questionable, that is harmful, as opposed to positive content. So since the algorithm change of 2018, it doesn't matter how much you kind of react to certain posts and certain stuff. What will come up on your timeline is really dependent on what your network. So those, and that's another point. It's like, you know, don't be too generous with your friend requests and accepting them, and because, you know, your network will eventually determine what kind of content. It's also a great part of the algorithm in terms of determining what kind of content comes up to your timeline. And of course, some people are considering to completely delete their accounts, to completely decide, you know what, I'm out of here. It's just too much. It's negative, so on and so forth. I think that's a fair statement, and I think you have enough reasons and grounds to do that. But my advice would be, especially for creatives, you know, some professions just don't have that luxury of being, you know, able to kind of disregard social media, because if you're not a software engineer who's I don't know, working for a big corporation making enough money, it's fine. You can kind of not have Facebook. But if you are somebody who's, you know, a freelance or something, and you work for yourself and you need to put ads out there and stuff like that and reach audiences, because Facebook is so widely used, it's such a huge marketplace that you can't just disregard. And I think there needs to be some sort of way to navigate. And one potential way is to hire somebody who takes care of your social media. Like as a creative, you spare a small budget per month and you have somebody who takes care of your social media posts and messages and things like that. And yeah, just make sure that you keep an eye on what stuff is posted. So that's I think my advice.
No, that's a very good advice, given the time that it takes actually to be on Facebook and your all social platforms. It's worthwhile the $10 to save you that much time that you can be more active in your day. I can you know, thank you enough for your time and for joining us and explaining these you know these very technical terms and you know one things about Facebook and the supercomputer that they have that really does this. A lot of us might think it's actual people doing this, but they have $1 trillion worth of supercomputer that actually sifts through everything and keeps an eye on everything, and it's programmed. So thank you. I appreciate you explaining, and I thank you immensely, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.